One of the others. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. This is a Fort Myers Beach Town Council meeting. It is Monday, the 20th of May at 9 a.m. All council members are present. Bruce just isn't sitting in his chair yet, but he is here. So if you would please stand for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance.
As we gather here today, we pray that we are ever mindful of opportunities to render our service to fellow citizens and to our community. May we keep in mind always the enduring values of life, exerting our efforts in those areas and on those things upon which future generations can build with confidence. Let us continue to strive to make a better world. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all for being here this morning. The first item is an approval of the final agenda. If I may have a motion for that, please.
Motion to approve is presented.
Second.
Motion's made by Ms. Shamp, seconded by Ms. Hossafras. Is there any objection to the motion? The motion carries unanimously. And next is public comment. Michelle, do we have any cards?
Yes, my first request is from Kathy McGill. Can't quite read.
That's all right. We'll just go with Kathy. Good morning.
This is the first for me, guys.
Well, just when you get to the microphone, just say your name for the record and tell us
Yeah,
what
Kathy
you want to say.
McGrath.
Good
I'm
morning.
here to speak on behalf of the Bay Oak seniors. I just don't want you, I thought this was a budget meeting, so when there is a budget, that we are a little more included in it, because there's programs that are beginning to get pretty high for some of the seniors, and we just don't want to be forgotten when you're making up the budget for us, okay?
Okay,
And
Kathy.
we need a director, that maybe one that could look into financing, that they could, someone that's capable of finding the financing that the government offers for us to go down like other communities and other states have. That's my biggest concern. So I thank you for this time, that's all. Just don't forget us, you'll all be there someday.
We already are.
We all pay a lot of taxes too.
Thank you, Kathy. Is there anyone else,
The
Michelle?
next request is from Valadeo.
Valadeo. Is there someone here named Valadeo? Okay. Anyone else, Michelle?
That's all the requests I've received.
That's all the cards, is it? Yes, sir. Please, come on. Go ahead.
And I haven't done this before either.
That's all right, just tell us your name first.
Okay, Joanne Roden.
Thank you, Joanne.
Um,
Joanne Broden.
my name's Joanne, I'm from England and I'm a full-time liveaboard cruiser. I've sailed all over the world and I spent 80% of my time at anchor. I'm currently at anchor at Fort Myers Beach. I anchor because I'm a budget-conscious sailor and I choose to spend my dollars in the restaurants, the businesses, the bars, public pools and libraries, rather than spending it on a mooring ball with very limited facilities. I also anchor because it's safer to drop the hook than to get a mooring ball, especially at Fort Myers Beach where the currents and the tide and the wind is very strong and makes the boat do unpredictable things, and I'm a solo sailor. I've noticed in Florida, as opposed to the rest of the world, that there's almost an anti-anchoring cult developing, and there seems to be a big misconception that anchored people are all homeless and derelicts, and this is simply not true. And the sailors I know at anchor, they run a tidy ship. We're proud of our boats and we keep them in great, good order. We have pump out, we have great anchors and chain, and we conduct ourselves with seamanship and we behave responsibly. Actually, our boats look great, and we know this because people take photographs of us every single day. The homeowners, the tourists, they absolutely love to look at all the pretty little boats in the bay, and they even come over and talk, they engage with us, and they want to know about the lifestyle. So it seems to me that anchored people are being thrown into the same category as the derelict boats that are allowed to stay in the waters. And derelict boats should not be used as an excuse to take away the rights from conscientious, responsible sailors. Why can't the derelict boats just be managed? Why can't the city auction them off and spend the money on new facilities? Why can't you just take contact details of anyone anchoring so that you already have their information? Should the boat then become a derelict or a nuisance, you already have the information to deal with it. There are some simple solutions, and they're out there, and it's almost as though the anti-anchoring campaign has gotten so big it's become complicated. So eliminating anchorages will just mean that more boaters will squeeze into the areas that remain, and that'll just create overcrowding and safety issues. Marinas will become full, the prices will rise, and the average cruiser will not be able to afford them. And the ever-expanding mooring fields will also raise the prices, and the lacking facilities will just never catch up to provide for the boats in the way that they should do. Foreign cruisers such as myself, and there's thousands of us, will simply take our boats, our dollars, and our tourism, and we'll go to another country where we're welcomed, and people want us, and we're allowed to anchor without prejudice, sorry. And that's all I got to say. And also I have several emails that I haven't had a chance to print out because the library wasn't open before the meeting. And I wonder if there's some way I could send these emails. They're from people who support this, and they've not been able to be here because it was such short notice. So,
Yes, there is. And Michelle will give you her address, her email address.
Sure.
If you forward them all to her, then she can separate them all out to us.
that would be marvellous.
Yes.
Thank you very much for your
Joanna,
time. Thank
for
you.
your comments. Is there anyone else that'd like to speak this morning? Anyone? Leon? I'm sorry.
Good morning, Madam Mayor, council, staff, and visitors. I am Leon Moyer, and I'm
Good
also
morning,
here to
Leon.
speak on the, thank you, on the mooring issue, and I know there are a few others here I hope also speak. We have a problem here, as you mentioned, we're all getting older. And as we get older, we sometimes end up in a position where we're living on a boat, and can no longer take care of it. There was a man out here the past 2 weeks, he's been aground 3-4 times. Recently on your island here at Bowditch, of course, he thinks he can sail and he really can't anymore. And the Coast Guard has been moving his boat back to Bowditch, tying it up. He's actually been taken in for observation for medical conditions to see if he's actually competent to take care of himself, and they released him and he's back out on his boat. But he can't sail anymore. Now, what do we do with people like that? There's no law dealing with that situation. So it's not the mooring field that's going to solve all your problems. There are other problems. I have copies of tickets here that I got from Lee County Sheriff's Department that they've been issuing to these boaters out here that have open hatches on an empty boat sitting by Bird Island. And nothing is happening with those tickets. They've been cited with the state statute violation. The law already exists. But I think we need more enforcement of the people who are causing problems and not trying to create a new mooring field, which might just limit the access for those who are responsible boaters. Thank you.
Thank you, Leon. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Okay.
This again is very unique for me. I don't usually do public speaking. My name is Doug, last name is Brem. I'm originally from New York. I came down here about a year and a half now. I've been part of this community. I feel like I've been a productive part of the community. I've had jobs at Beach Outlet, now working at 7-Eleven. And it's kind of a time-honored tradition for sailors to go from port to port, and eventually you find a place where you like to be, which is here. Unfortunately, if we do put a mooring field in, I'm going to have to move on, because with the salaries that you earn here in this community, you just can't afford being in the mooring field or whatever. I feel that me and Misty kind of make a little unique pair as we walk along the streets, and we make Fort Myers Beach, I think, a little more unique experience for people. Because they're constantly getting our picture taken and pictures posted to social media, which is a promotion for this town, because I'm sure they put their little tag underneath where the picture was taken. And unfortunately, if I have to start paying for a mooring field, we'll have to move on, and we'll have to find a new community to make unique. So that's about it, I think. I just want to be able to stay in this community, and hopefully we can.
Thank
Thanks.
you very much. Yes, ma'am. Good morning.
Sorry, I was a little bit late, but
No, you're fine. You're just
I
fine.
just wanted to, I know my friend already talked about Bay Oaks, and we're just concerned about the
Tell us your name first.
Karen Mann.
Good
and-
morning, Karen.
Good morning. And we're just concerned about the seniors. We know that you're trying, I know the kids are very important, the children of the beach school, and they play a big important part. But we also feel like we're an important part, and we'd like to have our own director, and we'd like to have programs that aren't so expensive. For some reason, they think we're all on fixed incomes, and we don't know how long we're gonna live, et cetera, and we'd like for it to be more, because you can see how much a ticket is online, and then you see how much they charge. I know we gotta drive back and forth, but we just like to have our own director, and we would like to have things oriented toward the seniors. But I know we have pickleball, which is great, because I play pickleball, but you could have other programs, a lot more programs, if if we had a director that was just concerned with us, because there used to be a large group of senior citizens, seniors that went to the boss, because they enjoy the fellowship, and it helps the ladies who, or men who have lost their spouses. It gives them the courage to come to Fort Myers Beach. They're not alone. They have a support group. And even people who are married, it gets you, you get to socialize, and that's a big part of, a senior's life, is they need to socialize. And that's what we would like, our own director. And things that are oriented and geared toward the seniors at not an outrageous price, because we're all on a fixed income. They seem to think that we're all got a lot of money because we live in condos, but we pay taxes, very high taxes, we support the restaurants, we do all that stuff. And we just, I don't know, we'd like to have a director, and we'd like to have things for seniors. The boss group.
Thank you, Karen. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Anyone else? Anyone else have any comments? Okay, I'm going to close the public comment then. And thank you all. The next item is local achievements and recognitions. I'll start with you, Ray. Anything?
Not really, although I must say I stopped with former Mayor Hughes yesterday. We stopped down at the Popeye Palooza so we could recognize Mike and his group for raising money for the beach kids, baseball and soccer programs.
Great.
That's it.
Great. Bruce, anything?
I guess we just give a comment about Penny and her efforts for the clean water activity. I was watching it on the news. I know she had enough volunteers to do it, and I think we had a good result and look forward to the conclusions that we get from that.
Super. Roxanne?
Bruce stole my thunder. I was going to mention Penny, and I think she deserves to be mentioned twice, I guess. But for a Fort Myers Beach town employee who on her own time applied for a grant, that whole water testing program would not have come about. And as a result, we had a huge amount of community involvement. We got a lot of people to come to the Mound House who had never been there before from off-island. We also now have communication and a partnership with FGCU. So her efforts have blossomed and spread, and it just shows what one person can do by taking something on. She applied for and received a grant from NOAA to do this project, and it is ongoing. We will be doing more testing, I believe, in September.
Thank you. Joanne?
Couldn't have said it better, Roxanne. I waited out in the Gulf at 10 o'clock and took my sample from the Gulf, and just for people who don't know, this is a point source contamination. It was done all the way around the island, and they'll look and see how the water compares around and then watch it over a period of time. And kudos to everybody who stepped up to be involved. And then the Fort Myers Beach Community Foundation finished their year. Once again, they gave thousands in scholarships to graduating seniors on our island. If their parents work here or you live here, you were eligible for a college scholarship. And they also gave thousands for other environmental and social projects. And they represent so many groups on this island who give so much to and don't get recognized, and it's all secret behind the scenes. So thank you to everybody who helps make this a better place for everyone to live.
Okay, thank you all. Next item on the agenda is advisory committees and reports, and I know we have Kathy Light here from the Anchorage Advisory Committee. Kathy, would you like to say anything? We have your report, and thank you very much for that.
Yes, thanks. I'm Kathy Light, Chair of the Anchorage Advisory Committee. I'm glad your report got in the packet. I was notified to get it to you at our Wednesday meeting, and also that I was going to be here today at the Wednesday meeting. Actually, as it worked out, I emailed it to you, and I'm glad it got in the packet because I got it done on Wednesday afternoon. And we had discussions about several of the items that I reported on anyway, so that was good. Number one, the special Anchorage area. We discussed this with you at our workshop in March. And just to bring it up again, we recommend that the town council have Mark Kincaid of Coastal Engineering continue to pursue having our mooring field made a special Anchorage area. As I said in the report and as we talked about in the workshop, it brings us a couple of different things like being on a chart, so people that are coming here will know that, and also that we don't have to have anchor lights. And so those are probably the two main things that will help us. We were close to getting this done in 2007, and then it wasn't a priority. So we would like to continue to pursue this. Second item, expansion of the mooring field. The AAC, as I said, hasn't really reached a consensus about immediately expanding the mooring field. Some of the reasons that we've been discussing, we have gotten monthly occupation reports since probably 2008 or 9, I think. And the last couple of years, we've had a couple of months at like 92 to 94%. We don't have any figures on if there are any days within that that are completely full, but really, we're not completely full, even in season, except for maybe a couple of days here and there. So also, at this point, our services, and we'll talk about the service provider, we have 2 bathroom shower units at Matanzas, which are very nice. But for a 70-ball field, that's probably really not even enough. Plus the dinghy dock, we continuously have issues because it's overcrowded now. And a lot of our members have concerns about the depth of potentially expanding. But we, on Wednesday, passed a motion to recommend that you proceed with a design and do the permitting for the land lease with the DEP and the Corps of Engineers. As far as future planning, if at a future time, you know, thinking 5, 10 years down the road or whatever, that you would want to do this, because the permitting and planning process would tell us, you know, depth, how many balls we could have potentially. It also takes several years to do. So if it's a thought that the council would like to do this in the future, it takes time. And so that would be that's our recommendation at this time. Upland service provider, we're just starting looking at the question and really have no recommendation. We're exploring remaining with Matanzas and working with them, or it's been suggested putting a trailer on a town-owned property or purchasing a property. And there's a lot of pros and cons to all 3 of them. We're just starting to look at that, and our members are just really not sure if it's really a good idea to proceed. We're trying to get some financial information, and we've gotten 3 or 4 packets of information. It's all been different. And we are looking at what Matanzas provides, what we would take in town. And so far, we really feel that the financial information that has been given to us really underestimates what it would cost the town to do it. And so we're still really trying to figure out if this is really a good idea.
Kathy, you said you've been given packets of information, and all the packets have been different. What does that mean?
It means that the bottom line of how much it's going to cost is different in all of them. Plus, we received some information a couple months ago about where we stand with where the mooring field is making or losing money. And really, for the last couple of years, it's been like a negative $50,000. And then all of a sudden, we're making money. So it's like somewhere, I know that the town has been changing the way the financial information, there's a different program and all of that. So we're just getting like numbers. We're not getting like what's in those numbers entirely.
Okay, so we can request that for you.
Yeah. Well,
Roxanne?
we've got several packets, and then this isn't in it, or this isn't in it, and this, you know, and then some of the bottom lines, we don't have the breakdown. So we're still kind of looking at that. That's not the whole of the picture, however, the financial picture. It's, you know, as I said before, right now we have 2 restroom units at Matanzas, which are very nice. But for 70 mooring balls, that's probably really not enough. And if we decide to take it in-house or continue with Matanzas, that's something we might want to look at, of expanding to 3, 4, 5 units. Or right now, it's the shower and the toilet are in the same unit, maybe, you know, taking it out. But we're trying to, because Matanzas has been a good partner. I know there have been problems with it, but it is in a great location. You know, if we would take it in-house, perhaps it's going to be in a different place, which might not be as convenient. I mean, we've got to look at a lot of different things besides financial. So I know that their contract is coming up for renewal, but, you know, that I don't want, we as a committee really feel as a whole, we don't want to rush into something. So I think there's a lot of things that need to be taken into looking about. And the last item I said was the budget. I have submitted a budget just for our committee because we do advertising, we do our Cruisers Appreciation Day. But looking at expanding the mooring field, potentially looking at the special anchorage area, looking at the upland service provider. I know when Mark Kincaid comes to speak to us, it costs money and some different consultants. So we're requesting in the budget that we have some money allocated so we can have some experts come to speak to our committee.
Any questions for Kathy? Joanne?
Yeah, a couple. The expansion of the mooring field, I think goes hand in hand probably with the special anchorage area. When you get the special anchorage
could.
area,
It could.
you may get the increased occupancy as a result. So I think that it's forward-thinking to go ahead with that. I think I remember the town council supporting the special anchorage area, but still having a little concern about the lights. There probably needs to be discussion going forward from a safety point of view, because we're narrow through there with the federal channel. Let's see, I support the, what you're saying about having further discussions with the upland service provider. Not sure how the rest of council feels. And I'm wondering with regard to the budget, if perhaps a presentation could be made to AAC about their portion of the budget or something that might help illuminate things for them, just clear up their confusion. And then we find out, the other question, of course, is specifically, you're saying add something to the budget. That's a little too nebulous. You know, what specifically do you need? What has been spent on advertising? What has been spent on cruiser appreciation?
I send in a budget request for that,
Okay, good.
specifically.
That's great. Thank you.
Roxanne, any questions? No. Ray, questions? Bruce, questions?
Nope, it's covered.
Okay, thank you very much, Kathy. That was very thorough.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
We'll see if we can get you some better financial info.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. The next item on the agenda is a proclamation of Safe Boating Week. Okay, gentlemen, come on up. I'm going to read this for you. The Town of Fort Myers Beach Proclamation. You hear that? Whereas, I always hear that whenever I read that. It's like you instantly hear, you know, those trumpets. Whereas the town of Fort Myers Beach in Lee County, Florida, with its unique weather and water resources, offers special water-related recreational activities to its residents and people from around the world. And whereas the area's miles of saltwater tidal coastline, rivers, bays, and canals provides many of the needed outlets for recreation and relaxation. And whereas recreational boating is one of Florida's leading outdoor activities, with more than 44,000 registered boats in Lee County alone, distinguishing Florida as the boating capital of the world. That's amazing, 44,000 boats. Whereas every year, lives are lost in boating accidents in spite of the educational efforts of the U.S. Coast Guard, the U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary, the U.S. Power Squadrons, the Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission, and local agencies. And whereas federal, state, and local agencies and private companies and groups have combined their efforts to reduce boating accidents by developing and executing safety training programs such as Boat Smart, Boat Safe, and You're in Command. And whereas the sponsors of these programs have focused their efforts toward youth and general public of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, urging them to enhance boating pleasure and avoid possible loss of life while reducing the loss of property and marine accidents. And whereas on average, 600 people die each year in boating-related accidents in the U.S., where cause of death was known, 78% of fatal boating accident victims drowned. Of those drowning victims with reported life jacket usage, 84% were not wearing a life jacket. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, does hereby designate May 21st through May 27th as Safe Boating Week and urges all citizens to join in learning and practicing safe boating by wearing a life jacket, taking boating education courses, getting a vessel safety check, operating their vessels responsibly, safely, soberly, and obeying Coast Guard regulations established after September 11th related to Homeland Security, given under my hand and the seal of the Office of the Mayor this 20th day of May 19, 2019. Congratulations, gentlemen. I would love for us,
And Gary will get, Gary will get your picture with your camera if you'd like. He's good at that.
Sneak on in here.
I'll sneak on in, I'll sneak on in. Ready? Uno, dos, tres. Thank you.
and if you'll just go there to the microphone and give us some words of wisdom.
This is my first time addressing a city council, so.
Don't
or
be
town
nervous.
council. But, Madam Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, and distinguished members of the council, I appreciate very much you having us here today. I am Nick Koveski, the flotilla commander of the Fort Myers Beach Station Flotilla, and we have with me Chief March. He's the engineering chief at the station, handles all concerns regarding the proper functioning of the vessels. And we have Dan Eaton. He's a past flotilla commander, and he has really been a great mentor to me since I haven't done this that long. I was recently appointed in January.
He's an overall good guy.
He really is,
Yes.
very much so. But we are deeply honored to be invited to your town council meeting today and receive the 2019 Safe Boating Week proclamation. The objective of Safe Boating Week is to ensure citizens are aware of the need to be safe on and near the water. And thanks to you and your commitment and concern, water safety is a reality in reducing the number of accidents at our beaches and waterways. The U.S. Coast Guard and U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary Marine Safety work is ongoing throughout the entire year in Southwest Florida. Together, the town of Fort Myers Beach and your Coast Guard and Coast Guard Auxiliary makes a real difference in our community. We look forward to continuing our strong association now and in the near future. And thank you very much.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
it so
much. You did a very good job.
Oh, all right. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you
You
for,
made it easy.
thank you for everything we do
Yes.
for the community. yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you. We really feel a strong association with Fort Myers Beach, both the auxiliary and the station, because you welcomed us into your community, and your police department, fire services, paramedics, they're all just terrific in helping us, do what we have to do, every year.
You're part of the team.
We
It's
are.
a whole team, right?
It's a team
So,
effort.
yeah.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much.
much. Thank you very
Could
much,
I ask him a quick
gentlemen.
question?
Sure.
Yes, sir.
What's the process to do a radio check these days?
A radio check, that probably would be this gentleman right here, because
Towboat US.
Channel what?
You can hail them on Channel 16.
Because you used to do another channel and then.
And
it
come
got
up,
hurt.
come on up for a second. That way we'll have you on the recording and everybody will be able to hear you. Yeah, on the record, yeah. I know
Dan-
you're a little shy, but come on.
Dan volunteers with the comm center, communication center at the station, so he's very familiar with it. So.
Yes, the best thing you can turn around and do is hail out Towboat US or Seatow on Channel 16. They'll take you over to one of their working channels. I believe it's also, Towboat US also has an automated service where you can key up on a particular channel. It escapes me right off the top of my head right now, but
Yeah, it
and it
used to
just
be like
basically
20
echoes back to what you
Right.
previous
It
broadcast.
used to be like 22 or 23 or something, but
Channel, I'm sorry.
I thought after the hurricane that got disabled. That's why I was asking.
No, the Coast Guard really doesn't do radio checks.
I know,
yeah.
but I see anyhow.
Yeah, the Coast Guard liaison channel is channel 22 Alpha. Anyone can turn around and actually contact the Coast Guard on 22 Alpha without going through the hailing and distress channel 16.
Okay, good, thanks.
Ray?
Thank you.
Question?
I just want to, as we get into our heavy boating season now, really, I want to thank you for all that you do here. And I couldn't help but think, when they were talking about Bay Oaks with the seniors earlier, there are a lot of seniors that boat, and And these old timers, you know, they think, well, I've been doing this forever. What do I need a life jacket for? Well, if they have a heart attack and fall off the side of the boat and they'll sink like a rock, you know, if they had the life jacket on, they would survive. So I think that's a fantastic message that you're getting out annually, like you do. And then one other item is, it's been several years since the Coast Guard has been in the St. Patrick's Day Parade, and it's long overdue. You guys are due back. And I'd like to get together a color guard for this year coming up. I'll wait to hear from you. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's, you mentioned a couple of things that are probably huge challenges today, and that's modifying behavior, and behavior of wearing your life jacket. And it's just so true, you know, the numbers don't lie as far as how much that can turn around and save your life, because a lot of times what'll happen, you'll end up, you know, being ejected for whatever reason, and when you hit the water, you're kind of stunned, you know, and you end up, you know, with a challenge. And the whole purpose of the life jacket is to take an unconscious victim and turn him face up. You know, that's the whole deal. Once again, thank you for the opportunity today.
Thank you.
I'd like to add one thing. My wife and I are avid bicyclists, and we notice in the Southwest Florida area, children wear helmets while they're bicycling, but so often you don't see adults wearing helmets. And I think, you know, just as with the life jacket, or PFD as we call it, it's important to wear. It's important to wear a helmet as well, you know, when you're out there riding your bike. So it's something that is dear to my heart. So,
Well, thank you both very much, all of you. We really appreciate your service.
thanks for being here for us.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for the regular meeting of May 6th, the management and planning of May 9th, the joint session of May 9th, and may I have a motion for those?
Before the motion, I don't know if it was just missing from my packet, but the joint session of May 9th, I didn't have any minutes from the CellCab presentation, just public safety.
That's correct, Councilmember. They weren't ready yet at the time the packet went out.
So we're going to do a separate approval of them later?
Later.
They are a separate agenda, actually.
Okay, then I will move to approve all three.
Is there a
Second.
second? Motion by Roxanne, seconded by Joanne. Ray, did you have
I
something?
have a correction on the Monday, May 6th minutes of our regular meeting. It says Vice Murphy, Mayor, represented the town at the recent community prayer breakfast, and he described the memorial for Dr. Homerding. That's supposed to be really Commissioner Kiker. I was not, I mentioned that I had been at the memorial for Commissioner Kiker, not Dr.
We'll
Homerding.
make that
I
note.
will amend my motion to reflect that correction.
And my second.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next, we move to the consent agenda item, which is a resolution ratifying the Special Magistrate Franchino Agreement, a resolution supporting efforts to decrease unnecessary low aircraft overflights, and a Lee County MPO Advisory Committee appointment of Tom Gressman. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Rexanne, seconded by Joanne. Anyone object to the motion? The motion carries unanimously. And thank you, Mr. Gressman, for being willing to step up to that position. The next item is the Mulholland Stewardship Award. We have 2 nominations this year. Mr. Homerding, posthumously, I can never say that word, and Tom Myers.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Ray?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve both of these gentlemen for the award. Tom Myers for his many years of service down at the Matanzas Pass Preserve, 40-plus years, and also Dr. Homerding for his environmental stewardship at the library.
Second.
Okay, so for the first time, we will have two nominations and recipients of the Mulholland Stewardship Award. I think that's extraordinary. Both of them are very well deserving. Do we have a, just under discussion for a moment, do we have a plaque or something that the council will present to Mr. Myers and perhaps to Mr. Poser as the library director at some point? I can't remember what we have done historically with it. Do you remember?
Well, historically, their
Their name goes
name
on
was
the-
put on the Tree of Life or whatever. But if it's the will of the council for us to get a plaque, we
I
can
would
certainly do
really,
that.
really like to have something that could be placed in the library. I think it would be nice to do that. Anybody disagree with that? Just something saying?
I agree, especially under that circumstance,
Yeah.
but maybe we could always do a certificate.
Yeah,
But in this
something.
case, since it was posthumous, maybe in the library would be appropriate.
I would suggest that the plaque include a photograph of the name going on
Oh, that's a good
the
idea.
sculpture, because I love the sculpture, and I
Yeah.
would like people that see the plaque to know that the name is on that beautiful sculpture here in Town Hall. So if that's possible.
And maybe we'll, once you have that wonderful task accomplished, Michelle, we will contact Mr. Myers and ask him to come in and receive his award, and Mr. Poser as well. Okay? So the motion is to approve both Mr. Hommerding and Mr. Myers as the recipients of the 2019 Mulholland Stewardship Award. There's a motion and a second.
Maybe, pardon me,
Yep.
one other thought is that since his family was down here for his memorial, maybe Leroy's family should be notified as well.
That's a good
that-
idea.
That's going to be awarded to him,
Well-
besides the library.
And Mr. Poser might be able to do that, too.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on this? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously, and congratulations. Next item is the Newton Strategic Plan. Allison, you want to come up? It's to approve a Resolution 1910 adopting the Newton Beach Park Strategic Plan. If there are any questions, Allison Geeson, the director, is here. Any questions for Allison?
Well, hey, Allison, on strategy 4, marketing E, it says, consider changing the name of the park to increase visitation and interest. I'm all for that. I was just curious, are you going to develop timelines then for all these items and things?
Yes, Allison Geeson. There is what I call an action plan, which is a living, breathing document that we change every 6 months that I go to CELCAB with, that has deadlines and specific information on staff who is responsible for that. So if you would like to see that, I could provide that for you, but it is about a 7-page document breaking down each one of these strategies and goals in order to make sure that it's implemented.
You would, since you did a good job in the Mountain House.
Thank you.
Wasn't expecting any less.
Just to that, excuse me.
No, go
May
ahead,
I?
Ray. Yes.
Just to that particular item, that's the only one I had any concern about. I know if a vote were taken right now, I'd probably lose that vote about changing the name, but I'm assuming we're working on the assumption that if and when there is a change that's going to come about, that'll come back before the council again.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
It'll be a charrette, just like the strategic plan. I see that a lot of input being had and talked about.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Allison? Joanne?
I had the same item circled. I've actually had some calls about this one, people concerned about changing the name, and I share that concern. But I do know that during our conversation, we talked about emphasizing beachfront, and so, if you think, if nothing else, Newton Beachfront Park, just to, emphasize that. But also on the actual mission and vision, we'd actually talked about Newton Beach Park is a beachfront educational recreational experience for all. Remember, we just talked about that in session. So just keep that in mind, that that's a possibility.
Thank you.
That's all for me.
Roxanne, any
Thank you.
questions?
I have no questions.
Allison, during the charrette at the work session, I like the idea of the addition of just as you have it on the sign, Newton with at home of the Seven Seas Cottage. I think that accommodates in the long run, that accommodates some marketing abilities of the Seven Seas Cottage, which, has its allure. But Fran Meyer sent me a long text last night. I'm sure maybe she contacted you all, and she reminded me of many things that had happened. And I guess I want to say that even though nobody knows who the heck Newton is, Maybe because the name is there, they'll learn a little bit about him. And I think it's important to maintain that name. So, okay, but may I have a motion to approve Resolution 1910 on the adoption of the Newton Beach Park Strategic Plan?
So moved.
It's a joint motion by Rexanne and Joanne, and seconded by Mr. Murphy. Is there any objection to this motion? There's no objection. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Allison,
Thank
very
you.
much. Very good work. Allison, if I could just ask you one other thing before you leave. There were a couple of women who spoke early at public comment about seniors programs, so just want you to have a heads up.
Yes, Board Cab is meeting this Thursday at 12 o'clock, and we are discussing budget, in particular, those types of programs. So we
Thank you
will
very
be-
much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next item is a surplus of radios. The Bonita Springs Fire Control and Radio District has requested a donation of surplus communication equipment. I didn't even know we had any surplus of communication equipment, but Roger, you have any comments on this?
Madam Mayor, perhaps some of you might recall that we had mentioned as part of this year's budget that we were going to upgrade and get on
Yes.
the county system. And as a result of that, the old radio system that we no longer use apparently is in use in Bonita for some activities, and therefore they approached us, rather than us surplus our equipment through our typical reverse auction process, that the council would consider just making a direct donation to the Bonita Springs Fire Control and Rescue District.
Okay. Joanne, you have a comment?
I just have a question. I did contact Chief Love with regard to the conversation of this former CERT members and sort of that volunteer aspect of emergency management in our town. We have set up a meeting to discuss that. He was looking forward to that. And I'm just wondering if there might be the use of radios for them, if we might just wait to donate this till after I have the conversation with Chief Love. But if the town doesn't feel it fits in with their radio program anyway, then that's cool, let them go.
I don't know. Anybody, Roger, you have a comment on that? Rex, you have a comment?
I guess my comment would be is if the town has upgraded, I would want CERT to be able to
Upgraded as
interface.
well.
They should be upgraded to
Yeah.
interface with our system. So I would be in favor of approving the motion to surplus to donate the surplus equipment.
I just wanted to make sure we had that thought process and conversation.
Oh, yeah.
That's fine with me.
Ray?
Well, I doubt very much that the Fire Control District needs our donations, to tell you the truth. But anyhow, with that being said, I'm all for donating them to the city of Bonita Springs in the cooperation, in the spirit of cooperation with our fellow towns and cities here. But I also think, Joanne, if you want to have your conversation with the chief, that's fine too. I mean, I don't think they're going to want them, but anyhow, by all means, you can investigate it.
Bruce, you have a comment on it?
I agree with Joanne.
Okay.
Okay, well, and that's only a week's delay.
Then
So
let's just
I'll
give
let,
me a motion to table this until our next meeting.
okay, that's good. I move that we table this until our next meeting of Monday, June 3rd.
Okay. Is there a second for that?
Second.
Is there any discussion on this? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
I am.
Okay, I was hearing that, just, okay, so the motion carries 4-1. We'll move this to that, and I'm excited to hear the results of your meeting with Chief Love. Next is a special event application for Memorial Weekend kickoff at Bayside Park adjacent to Nervous Nellies. And do we have someone here for that? Yes, ma'am, come on up. Anybody have any questions for this proposal? Joanne?
I just wondered, is there a waiver then of the open container, Roger? I didn't necessarily see that.
I don't believe they requested that there.
I believe a waiver,
If you could just
Katrina
give it-
Salikar.
Thank you, Katrina.
And I believe a waiver of open container means that we're inviting people to bring alcohol into the park, and we are not.
And then secondly, I noticed that they're going to be using, do you want to comment on that now, Ray?
Well, I'm just thinking the other side of that is if you sell it and then and the people are out there with it, you'd need the waiver for that as well.
Well,
Right.
it's Nervous Nellies, and they have all of the necessary permits and extensions in
They have an
place.
extension of their own.
Yeah, yeah.
of
Okay,
their
they
own
have the
license.
extension of premise?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the other thing I noticed that they're using the town electric, but I don't see any fee or anything for rental fee for the park and
Yeah,
electric.
you know what, that's kind of on the website. It says that there's a fee for that, and actually, at the moment, we're waiting on Tektronix to tell us if they actually need that, to finalize that. But the fee, I know it's not on the permit, but I saw it, like, in the website, it says what that is. But it's like $120 or less. It's right
So,
there.
Roger, we're not being asked to waive the fee?
No, well, let's just make it clear if they use our electricity, they'll have to pay for it.
And then how about rental of isn't there usually
They're
rental
paying
for the?
they're paying for that.
Okay.
They're not asking for any fee waivers here, as far as I know.
Okay, good. I just wanted to clarify that. That's all for me. Thank you. I know it'll be a great event. I hope it's successful.
Actually, additionally, it will benefit the Tabarini Foundation, and Bob Tamburini is a gentleman who arranges all the music at the Lani Kai, and he teaches kids to play instruments gratuitously through classes, and they also donate guitars and things like that.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions? If not, may I have a motion, please, to approve the Memorial Day kickoff concert? Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Vice Mayor Murphy, seconded by Ms. Hosefras. Any objection to the motion? It carries unanimously. Congratulations, thank you, and very good luck.
Thank you.
We're to final public comment. Anyone care to make final? Anyone
Easy
care
for you to say.
to make final public comment? Anybody? Nobody has any comments. We'll close comment and move on to Mr. Hernstadt's items. Roger?
Thank you. I just wanted to bring a couple items to the council's attention. Many of you are aware that the town had experienced more red algae on the beach than we could pick up with our staff. We used our outside emergency services contractor to assist us with that activity, and we have been in touch with the TDC regarding reimbursing the town for those expenses, and they have confirmed to us that they will in fact do that.
Excellent.
The second thing is, due to the scheduling of some members of council, no one could attend the meeting, the post-session meeting, legislative session meeting that Senator Benedicto put on with Senator Pasadomo. I just want you to know that I did attend that meeting, and I did extend the council's appreciation for their hard work on behalf of the town. And then just last, and we'll work with anybody to reconcile any number, but I just want to make it clear that we have, during the course of the year, we have reports that tend to be Excel spreadsheets that people can change any number they want to on. We have our unaudited financial statement, which comes out at the end of the year, and then we have our audited financial statement, which is the final official numbers of the town. So it's not unusual for those numbers to change over a course of a year.
Speaking to Kathy Light's comment.
Just in general.
In general.
About how numbers
Okay.
work.
All right, thank you. Anything else, Roger?
That's it for me, thank you.
Any items from council for Roger? Good.
I'm just wondering with regard to the public comment with regard to the senior center, is there like a director within the staff right now, or somebody that has had some continuity with the senior program? Do we know?
Well, the answer is I don't believe they've had a designated person, if that's your specific question. I think that obviously we have staff that liaison with the program, but I don't know that we have a designated person who only does that.
And secondly, is the town amenable to discussions with the Women's Club still with regard? I mean, that's just a great center there too, ready to go, and it's mostly empty in all honesty. And we call it the Women's Club, but I got to tell you, the women that show up there are mostly seniors, so we might as well expand that. It's a great facility, and it's always been intended for community use. So I'm just hopeful that we may get creative because the building is already there, we could do more programming right away without tremendous increased cost by working with the Women's Club. And then do some future planning.
Can I
Yes,
comment
we'd
on
like-
that if I may?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I've had a couple of meetings with people, leadership of the Women's Club, and I've asked them to tell us what it is they want to do, you know, from a community standpoint for a variety of reasons, including making sure that their zoning reflects those activities.
What is their zoning?
I believe it's institutional, but I'm going from memory. So we just want to make sure that whatever it is they contemplate doing up to and including hosting community events for our seniors, of whether they're passive recreation, card games and things of that nature, or other things, that we know what they are so that we can make sure that their underlying documents match those activities, and they are working on that, I've been told. So, and of course, you know, through our zoning process, we'll help them get whatever, you know, through that process to modify their zoning. If that becomes necessary, we're not even sure that it will. Depends on what they ask for. So then from there, you know, there's a whole other theoretical arrangement of, do we actually, through a voluntary or contractual basis, rent out the space owned and controlled by the Women's Club as a expansion of our recreational programs, and that's a whole separate conversation.
Okay. Anything else for Roger? Bruce?
Well, no, not for Roger. Never mind.
Okay. Mr. Herron, Town Attorney's items.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. Just a couple of items. Several of you have asked me a question regarding legislation that was recently passed by the Tallahassee this past session regarding attorney's fees and shifting of responsibility for consistency challenges. There is, in fact, such a statute. It hasn't been signed by the governor. So until it goes into effect, it's just that. It's just an adopted statute. I am aware that there are a number of interest groups that are strongly opposing and asking the governor to veto that particular piece of legislation, not only for the attorney's fees provision, but for some other substantive language in that amendment. But to the question that's been asked as it relates to some pending litigation that the town is involved in, unfortunately, that statute would only have prospective application. It would not apply retroactively to any existing litigation. So if the town were to prevail in any consistency challenge that's currently pending, it would not be able to avail itself of that legislation, unfortunately. On completely unrelated matter, with respect to the dock permit that was issued for 152 Crescent Street, unfortunately I have to advise you that we've been sued on that matter already. One, alleging that the council took inappropriate action at its meeting, and second, a complaint for declaratory injunctive relief. I will continue to keep you apprised. Neither lawsuit has actually been served officially on the mayor, unless that I'm the mayor's.
Nope. As a matter of fact, I was
just more of an FYI until such time as it's formally served on us. Who are the plaintiffs in that? The Andrea Lee Carrier, I believe that she is the principal of Silver Sands in both cases. Nothing further.
So if I don't get served, then that means there's no case.
That's our position.
Okay. Anything else, John?
Nothing further.
I have a question for you. I'm
Yes,
just
ma'am.
curious about these pending cases that we've been trying to settle. If there's any update, any action, this lingeringness is, I think is just so harmful for the town.
I can provide you information on two that I think are certainly of concern, maybe at the forefront of your concerns, Mayor. In the TPI litigation involving the Margaritaville,
That's in the courts. I'm talking about things that the town council has the ability to settle.
We have put forth, and I know one of them is the Junkanoo, Mr. Prasad, the two structures that are down the way. We have made it very clear to Mr. Prasad what he has to do in order to bring that property into compliance and to settle it. It's very simple. He just needs to remove the encroachments. For reasons unbeknownst to me, after having conversations directly with Mr. Prasad, as well as with his attorney, he seems unable or unwilling to submit the required paperwork to the town to accomplish that. As a result, the matter is currently scheduled for trial in July. I'll check. It may be late June. And if we are unable to resolve it, it will proceed to trial.
Okay. I'm super concerned about that property now because there appear to be people living in the structures.
So that raises a secondary issue, as you're mentioning. One is that due to the timeline, the property owner, as you know through the history of the discussions of trying to resolve this issue, is trying to, didn't want to resubmit plans for modifying the structure and completing the structure. Well, now he doesn't have a choice because his time for under his old building permit has expired, so he has to, after 18 months, you have to resubmit plans. He doesn't have a choice. That's part A. Part B is because the structure is open and unsecured, we could open theoretically a code enforcement case asking him to secure the structure. So we could go forward and do that to try to minimize the issue that you're mentioning, Madam Mayor.
It's just, I am concerned for public safety. Yeah. Has anybody else noticed this?
Yes, and I know it happened in another structure that was left, not that one. So I agree that we probably need to seek for them to secure the structure.
We
In
will do that.
And as polite a manner as we can, but if we can't be polite, then we'll have to not be impolite.
Look, for you all to know, the bottom line is the town has been trying to resolve this. I mean, we really have been trying to resolve this for several years now, and there needs to be a resolution, so, okay. Rex, you have anything on it?
I have nothing on that, but I did want to mention, Mr. Herron did contact me. I think he saw me in the audience at the magistrate's hearing. I wanted to say that I didn't respond because I didn't have any major concerns after we got past the first case. The first case was a little messed up, but sometimes that's what happens with a docket, so I can be very forgiving of that. I do want to say that I didn't stay for the entire time, but I was there for the first 2 hours, and I thought, again, after the first case was over, that the staff performed admirably, especially the gentleman from BASE, I thought were very good. And I also was pleased with the choice of the magistrate who filled in for us. I thought he was very professional and very patient. He had a very good judicial demeanor. So I just wanted to let everybody know that the town council is keeping an eye on those things as well.
Okay, anything else for town attorneys? Yep.
As it relates to the Crescent Street dock, my understanding is that, has a permit been issued yet?
Yes.
Yes.
And was there something in there that stipulated that a boat cannot be moored on that dock?
Yes, basically, the permit uses up the full width that's available to the property owner, so therefore, the permit showed that there would just be ropes on the back side of the dock, which is under the town code, prohibiting someone from docking there and then accessing the dock.
And the reason I mention that is that I think the concern of some people is that if he had the dock there and then had a boat on it, then it would impede the flow of traffic of boats, which seems reasonable. But in that the permit is restrictive, and I was also under the understanding that when he applied for the permit, he said there'd be no mooring to the dock. And if that is clear to everyone, and I'm not sure that it is, then maybe that would have some bearing on the suit. So I don't know. And maybe people understood that and they said, well, we're going to sue anyhow. So I don't know. The other thing, was there any comment on that?
No, we're, from my standpoint, I'm aware of that, and to the extent we will certainly make that information available to the plaintiffs and see if that has any bearing on their decision to move forward.
A few weeks ago or a few meetings ago, we were talking about contractors, and it's my view that contractors should be held responsible for their lack of following the permitting process. And there was discussion that, well, maybe we shouldn't get involved in second and third party maneuvers and so on and so forth. I still feel strongly that we should be involved in finding contractors when they don't follow the permitting process. But I think I'd ask, and maybe if I didn't ask, I'm asking now, do other municipalities have rules where they do find contractors for not following the process?
The way that it's accomplished, Counselor, is that you have the contractors register through your town, and you have a local contracting trades qualifying board, and then if someone has a complaint against a contractor, it would go in front of that board. That board would hear the complaint and potentially take action against that contractor if it felt that contractor didn't operate within their state requirements for that type of license. As we discussed, I think the last time the subject came up, we currently allow the county to handle that activity for us. It doesn't prevent us from forwarding a complaint to the county's contracting board or a local citizen of Fort Myers Beach from filing a complaint with the county's contracting board, since the contractors are qualified under the county group.
We can provide that information. We can, obtain copies of the agenda from the contractor licensing board to see if, what type of enforcement action, what municipalities may be taking action directly against the contractors. And I can reach out to my peers and ask what they're doing as far as unpermitted activity by contractors.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Anything else, Bruce?
Nope.
Okay, we'll move on to council members' items and reports, and we'll start with you, Bruce.
I just want to make a point about the discussion we had recently with the committee that was trying to get Roundup banned. And I asked them the question about the cancer thing, and I was given the answer that, oh, yes, the courts have fined against them and things. So I was reading some articles about that, and I think that ruling on Roundup is going to be overturned for sure. Well, I shouldn't say for sure. Surely can guess what the courts are going to do. But anyhow, the case in California, what I read about it was that the judge seemed very prejudiced against Roundup, and he ignored the EPA's study about Roundup and was using some other study that was very limited in its nature and was concentrating on things such as worms and stuff and not humans. And I'm not a defender of Roundup. I'm just stating that I'd like the facts to be fully vetted before we do things. We got that letter about San Carlos Island and their pumping station, and that gave me pause for concern. Is that going to have an impact on us if that pumping station is truly not sufficient with the new sewers and everything that we've got going on it? And Roger, do you have any comment about that? Do you know anything about that at all?
Well, I could tell you that that letter that you all received and I received was forwarded to the county administration. County administration has not responded in writing, but verbally has advised me that that information about the pumping station is inaccurate. I'm still waiting for their...
What part was
That it's old and inadequate. They have not responded yet in writing. I'm waiting for that. I've asked them to copy us on their response to the author of that letter.
And thank you.
Okay, Ray, any comments?
Couple. I forgot to mention in my comment earlier about the Palooza yesterday yesterday, that sitting right next to me at the table was Penny Jarrett. And that was the first time I ever met Penny. And we talked all about the water sampling program and so forth, and she was delightful and very impressive. So I was happy to meet her and able to speak with her. My second item is after the elections and we reorganized the council. As you know, what we always do is hand out the assignments to the outside committees and so forth. And I requested and received the appointment to the Southwest Florida Regional Planning Council, which I had served on for 5 or 6 years in my prior tenure on council, and was thrilled to be going back. What I had forgotten was that the state of Florida had gutted the functions of the Southwest Florida, all regional planning councils throughout the state. We're one of about 6 throughout the state, which, for those who don't know, the Regional Planning Council is made up of elected officials from the counties and the cities and also governor appointees to the board. And the function used to be to review what were known as DRIs, developments of regional impact, throughout our 6-county area. And back in the 90s, that was very vibrant. I mean, there was a lot going on. There was a lot to talk about, and we also reviewed the changes to comprehensive plans throughout the region. And there was a lot going on. Well, the state, in its wisdom, took those functions away from the local planning councils and concentrated itself back up in Tallahassee, thereby leaving the regional planning councils with very little to do, in my opinion. Although the concept is still worthy and still noble. I was greeted at my first meeting on Thursday, and I looked at the agenda, and one of the final items on the agenda was council relevancy and future. So you can just imagine my surprise to see that as an item on the agenda. So with all that being said, I'm sure you're all bored to death about that already, but I'm going to continue on that for a meeting or two and see
Did
what.
they figure out the relevancy?
Well, that's right. I mean, Frank Mann was there from Lee County, and I said to Frank, this is, I mean, they're on life support. A lot of the municipalities and the counties are pulling out their funding and so forth, and I mean, and the discussion got to be on their cost-cutting measures that they're doing now to save money, and frankly, in my opinion, it was pretty pathetic. And I'm sorry, I'm really sorry to say that, and I hope I'm not offending anybody over there at the RPC. But anyhow, so that's where I'm at with that, and I'll keep you attuned to
Okay.
to my future on that. And if need be, if I should leave that up, I'll be happy to pick up something else for the council. My other question was, and I've been getting a lot of questions about this from people in town, is this business about the town elections, what we're going to do. I was kind of unclear about that myself when we last discussed it and left. So I wasn't sure what our direction was, and if we had formalized what we were going to do, or if we had not, when we were going to. Can anybody answer that for me?
I've got that as an issue too, that we need to bring forth. It seemed that my impression was we were in unanimous support of changing the election date. There was some other discussion, a separate total issue about changing the terms of office, but we need a resolution for changing the date.
I was under the impression we had instructed John to bring us back several different options to study, and I assume he's working on that.
Yes, what the proposal is, we'll have on an upcoming agenda, either next one or the second in the month of June, an ordinance for you all to consider.
There isn't a
I'm
second
sorry,
meeting in
that's
June.
Correct.
So let's have it for the next
Next
meeting,
meeting.
please, because it'd be nice to have that taken care of before we leave for the summer.
Correct. So it would be an ordinance changing the dates and extending the terms to coincide with that extension. The other issue that was discussed was changing the terms of office, which will require a referendum, and we can draft that as well and have it on for the next agenda.
Perfect. Joanne?
I still am concerned about changing the date to November. People are here in March, and I don't think Sanibel's changing. So I throw that out there. I'm hearing a lot of people very concerned about changing that. And I frankly feel like anything that we do ought to go to referendum in November, like whether it needs to or not, let the community decide. You know, we asked them just in 2016 about 4-year terms and things, and it was like 67% to 33% no. I think the community likes what it's doing, and maybe they don't mind spending that extra $10,000 or $15,000 every other cycle that we wind up not hitting on November or a March thing, and we wind up paying for ourselves. But I'm very hesitant to summarily change things without hearing the voice of the people.
I've gotten one email about this that's in a negative context, probably the same one you all have received, and and on the positive side, I will tell you that during this past election, the complaints that I got were, you know, first of all, we had huge by mail turnout, and that would have even been greater had people actually received their ballots. But the more important thing was that people have difficulty getting to the polls in the middle of March, and especially with road construction. So quite honestly, I view switching the election to November as a huge favor to town people, and because it isn't as busy, they'll be able to get to the polls easily, and those who aren't there will, and already probably likely do, receive their ballots by mail. And as to the changing of the terms of office from 3 to 4 years, I absolutely agree that that has to be a referendum, and if people choose to do that, then they choose to do it, and if they don't, they don't. But just because it was included in that referendum 3 or 4 years ago, whenever that was, I don't think that that makes it a reason not to ask again, because that was one question amongst 16 or 18, I don't remember how many questions were on that referendum, and I think that isolated, there's an opportunity to have people really understand what's at the heart of it.
My other concern, just in all honesty, with November, is the vibrancy of the pre-election conversation. You know, we're a small town. Now you're talking about running your campaigns in August, September, October, let's say. And that's hurricane season. Nobody's here. I mean, we have a very vibrant campaign season, which is educational, informative. So I want you to visualize campaign season at that time of year. I'm just, you know, I clearly am going to go with the will of council, but I have some hesitancy there. And I'd like you to visualize that campaign season. It's not a vibrant season, but thank you.
I'll comment on that. I've done both. You know, I've done it in the fall and the spring, and the turnouts are usually high either way. You know, I remember that one year, I think it was, let's see, it was 98. It was an election year, and Bill Van Duzer and I, we had to evacuate the island for a storm. And Bill and I went around the whole island and picked up all of the campaign signs in his trailer. And it was still a high turnout. I mean, it was still a relatively high turnout. So either way, I think, Joanne, that the turnout is going to be there either way. It's and I agree that the people should know, but I think they should know the reasons why, you know, and if they're going to be lumped together, they should know why, and really make it educational, you know, let them know why it's even being considered. You know, not because we want to give ourselves another year in office and that sort of thing, but really why it would make things simpler for the town, you know, and why every time we turn around we're having another election, you know, and to me that's, although it's the way it is, it's disruptive, I think, you know, these constant elections. I mean, but and again, I'm not advocating for an extra year, believe me, but I agree, the people should make the decision, and but I just think they should be everybody should be filled in and educated as to why.
Rex, you're leaning in. Do you have something to say?
Yes, I would agree with Ray and Anita, and I will add to the conversation that the feedback I have received has been overwhelmingly positive about changing the election.
And was that feedback you got when you were walking door to door, or what you've just gotten now?
Both.
I'm just curious.
Both.
Okay. Okay. Bruce, any comment on that?
No, other than I thought Joanne made a good point about the campaigning and the fact of people here. Personally, I think most people are going to vote by mail, so it doesn't matter whether it's March or November. But that was an interesting comment about campaigning.
It is, yeah. Okay, so is that all you had, Ray?
Yes, thank you very much.
Joanne?
A couple of things. The resolution 1916 that we passed in our consent agenda.
Yes.
Anita, if you'd make sure that you get that signed. We do need copies of that for our May 30th meeting. We want to present that to the FAA director at that meeting. Thank you.
I'll make sure I do that today if the resolution is prepared. Is it, Michelle? Yes, okay. It will be ready. Okay.
Thank you so much. And then I had several calls about concerns about safety with the demolition of the Sunoco station, and it was sort of partly down and open right by a beach access and not fenced in. And it brings to mind, and thank you, by the way, to Roger for listening, but it brings to mind if we need to review, I know when Tops came down, they put a fence up around. I know you're supposed to at least have a silt fence. I don't think there was one there, but what kind of, that was partially demolished for several days. People were coming in and taking recycling out. I mean, it was a safety issue. What, do we need to, since we are in a period of redevelopment, do we need to look and see on the demolition permits that people are going to put fencing up, or what the safety issues will be? I just bring that up, please, that we can look at that.
I would second looking at demo issues. That's actually one of the things on my list. My concern, in addition, is that people are literally ripping every tree off the property, and I believe we do have some regulation about that already that we're just not enforcing. So maybe we need to go back and check on, after the demolition has occurred, do we need to find some people for ripping every tree off the property?
There was actually someone fined the other day for that.
Wonderful.
At the magistrate meeting, but, you know, irresponsible behavior, you know, trying to catch it after the fact is always a challenge.
But it's true, within the, maybe in the site planning of the demolition, maybe we can get the landscaping, the fencing or whatever. And Jason, I know you know what to do, so thank you. And then the last thing was, I was wondering if we had any feedback from the sheriff. I know that you were kind enough to forward the various ordinances to the sheriff. Do we have a plan for getting together with the sheriff again to discuss some of these quality of life ordinances that we have for the community and how, because I think that it's a budget conversation, obviously, perhaps.
Just to be clear, we shared that with the district captain because obviously that's where the folks who are servicing the town are coming from. So we wanted to make sure that they had versions of all the local laws that make sure they were fully aware of them. So, but in terms of hearing back from them, other than them saying that they would review that with their officers, no.
Possible that we have the town council ask you to get a follow-up from them? You can let them know that town council has asked. Would the council like that?
I'll
And
be
maybe
glad to
for our
write them a
June,
follow-up.
for our June 6th meeting, maybe they could come back again at
Just to
June
get some
6th,
feedback.
or
Yep.
we need some feedback. Maybe the
Would
captain.
you want it
or
at the
June.
council?
I'm sorry, it's not June 6th. I said it's June 3rd. Thank you. Monday, June.
The M&P is the 6th, the regular meeting is the 3rd.
Well, either one of those then, if we could maybe have the sheriff
ask
for an
them.
update. If that's
Anything
the
else,
will of
Joanne?
council.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Thank you, that's all. Thank you very much.
Rexanne?
Just to give Bruce some more information, I've been monitoring the Roundup cases. Just a week ago, the third case judgment has been entered against Roundup. So there's not just one. There are 3 judgments currently out there against Roundup. So I will continue to follow that. I mentioned trees when it came to demolition. I would be interested in putting on a future MMP a discussion of trees in general. We lost a lot of trees with Irma. People aren't planting trees. The only trees I see going up are palm trees. And we need some shade trees. I would like to discuss, I don't know if Tree City may not be the way to go. That may be too burdensome for us, but maybe there's some way we could encourage people to plant some trees on the island that provide shade and are beautiful. As I go around the island, I'm not seeing the beauty that I used to see with the trees.
Didn't somebody bring something up recently? We have this brochure about native trees.
Yep.
And then some years ago, the town did sales at a bargain price. And aren't we already a tree city or something?
No,
We are no longer a
dropped
tree
all of
city.
that 1 year.
We are no longer.
May I interject too, Roxanne, if you don't mind? The garden club also wants to get involved in a program again of native plantings, whether that's trees, plants, or whatever. So I said I would mention that, so thank you for spurring my memory. But with regard to the Tree City, I investigated that over the last year or two, and apparently what transpired was when we were running our program, this was according to Ray Burns, when we were running our program, individuals were buying the trees from us at a discount and taking them off island and planting them elsewhere. And the program wasn't running well. And so it was discontinued. But I support what you're saying, Roxanne, and the Garden Club would love to see us get back into native planting, discounting, getting native plants in, and maybe that could be trees too. I don't know what those categories might be, gumbalimbos and other, but still. So I would support that.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry to interrupt,
Oh,
Roxanne.
that's
it's your-
okay. Just if we could remember to add that when it comes to agenda management, the trees/native plants discussion. My next item is town hall parking. It wasn't bad this morning, but I know when I've come on previous days that sometimes there's not any place to park in the town hall parking lot anymore. And I know that people feel free to go over and park at Chapel by the Sea, and Chapel has always been very open and friendly about that, which I consider to be extremely Christian of them, considering that the town gave people parking tickets that parked over here until an agreement was reached about that. I think it's something that maybe we need to reopen a discussion with Chapel by the Sea about formalizing some kind of agreement that since our people park over there on a regular basis, and maybe if we had some kind of formal agreement, it could even be publicized. If town hall parking lot is full, you may go next door to Chapel by the Sea, and we would have some kind of quid pro quo about that. So I just bring that up for discussion.
It's a great idea, Roxanne.
We have a lot more vehicles in our parking lot now. Sometimes we're doubling up on committee meetings and people come and find no place to park. So just for food for thought. I receive a lot of questions from people, and there's a lot of rumor and misinformation about when do you need a permit, or maybe the flip side of that, when do you not need a permit? I think it would be very helpful if we had a list. I'm guessing this is true, but maybe someone will want to correct me. If I am repairing my outlet, I do that myself actually. I know how to turn off my circuit breaker and put in a new outlet. I'm assuming I don't need a permit for that. But people on the street are telling me, yes, I've been told I have to have a permit to repair my outlet, not move it, but repair it. So I would like to see us put out some kind of list of very well-defined things that says you do not need a permit to do X, because there's a lot of anger out there because people keep saying to me, I can't fix anything around my house because I'm scared that I have to get a permit. And the answer that I've received here is call us. Well, no, people shouldn't have to call town hall about every little thing that happens maintenance-wise in their household, I don't think. I think it would be a great service to the community that we have a well-defined list. No, you don't need a permit to do these things. And I understand it may need to be very well spelled out. But that's not impossible to do, and I'd be willing to help with it if I can be of assistance.
I think that's a great idea. Roger, you have any thoughts on that?
We have no problem preparing a brochure, but I will tell you that typically it's not the initial item that the person is repairing that generates the fact that they need a building permit. It's the fact that, they start with saying, I want to replace the switch plate cover, and next thing you're doing is they're remodeling their kitchen.
And I understand it.
We can define that.
If someone abuses it, then that's their fault. But at least the town has done the right thing by putting the information out there and dispelling a lot of the falsehoods. There are a lot of angry people that are angry at the town because they believe that they need permits for stupid things. And
well, let's just remember that the people, and people can be angry if they want to be angry. Hopefully we can just prevent that to some extent. But
that's what I'm hoping to accomplish.
This is South Florida Building Code. So it's not the town's code, it's not the county's code, it's the South Florida Building Code that we're all operating under. And that means that there should be consistency from city to city, from city to county, from county to county, in what's allowed and what's not allowed. The fact now that people may be feeling is the fact that at certain times, maybe there was less emphasis put on this, and therefore there was more leniency, and at other times, maybe they're feeling that there's more attention, therefore less leniency, but the rules of engagement really haven't changed. But we'll be glad to put together a brochure on that.
And again, I'm willing to assist.
We appreciate all the help we can get.
My next item, I wanted to let everybody know that I attended the recent TDC meeting. Those are really interesting. I would suggest everybody attend one. Pardon?
Can I trade?
You're always welcome to come. And right now, I'm just the alternate anyway, so
We don't have, we don't take a seat yet.
I believe we do next month.
Yeah, there's some conflict about that.
Okay, good. Well, keep me posted.
I will.
I wanted to let everybody know that absolutely every grant that the town of Fort Myers Beach applied for was received without any question at all. So I think kudos to Allison for doing a great job at moving that forward. That's been a real improvement for the town that our grants are going forward in that fashion, and I'd love to see us expand that. And I think there's some inroads that we need to be making as far as our reputation and our standing with the TDC, and I'm certainly going to work very hard at that whenever I have the opportunity to.
Can we touch on the Lonely Planet thing that you brought up the last
Sure.
time? So after Rexanne brought up that Lonely Planet brochure, I reached out to Tamara Pygott, who's the director of the Visitor Convention Bureau, and expressed to her what our concern was. And she, told me that we needed to remember that, well, first of all, she was horrified that we were upset with it, and especially the word narrow. And it was interesting because I was at an event one night with Seal and Dan and Miffy and a whole bunch of people, and the same word was brought up, that narrow word. So anyhow, she told me that they were in an 8-year contract with Lonely Planet, and that they went with Lonely Planet because people wanted authentic reviews, not just the TDC telling you how wonderful Fort Myers Beach is. They wanted an authentic review. And so Lonely Planet has actual trip bloggers, writers, travel people that come out, and they have an authentic experience, and that was their experience. But to all of that, the next edition of that brochure has yet to be printed, and though she couldn't promise that there would be a huge change, she was definitely going to try and work on the word narrow. So they were going to try and do something, and so we'll see when that actually comes about. But they were receptive, and she tried to explain in great detail how that comes about, and evidently Cape Coral wasn't happy with theirs either. So.
Well, and to expound upon that, I wasn't going to go into this, but since finding that example, I went to another event where I picked up a brochure which is not published by Lonely Planet, is published solely by the TDC, and I didn't find it to be especially complimentary about the beach either. So I am hoping that our presence of taking a more official role this summer will prove beneficial to us. Oh, I saved this for last because it's fun. Show and tell. This is 30% vinegar. The stuff you buy at the grocery store
Salad dressing.
is,
Salad dressing.
well, there's all, you can buy 30% vinegar of different brand names. I don't want to be promoting any particular brand. But we have discussed weed killing using vinegar, mixing it up. And I'd been doing it for quite a while with household vinegar and have to lug home gallon bottles each time to do it from Publix. And I got online and found out, heck, there's this stuff out there that's several times stronger. I can cut it in half, and it kills the weeds even better than the household strength. Or I can cut it all the way down to the 3 to 5% if I wish to. Now, I will warn folks that use this that if you touch it before you dilute it, it stings. That's why it was in a big plastic bag.
Did you buy that on Amazon?
I did.
And can you, sorry to interject, but can you approach Publix or Ace or anybody?
Well, that was my next statement, Joanne. I was not going to approach Publix. I was going to approach our local little hardware store with a local owner and indicate that we're certainly going to be promoting people using safer weed killing techniques on the island, and that they should have several customers. I would be one of them down there buying this vinegar. It's not hard to mix up. And you can tell if your neighbors are using or not by the smell, which is not unpleasant, I don't think. So anyway, I just wanted to let everybody know that this vinegar is out there, and you don't have to lug home so many bottles because you can dilute this, but you can still leave it stronger than the household stuff, so it works even better than the original recipe that we've been putting out there. So my fun part of council member comments, I had show and tell today.
Well done. Okay, so you all have covered many of my topics here, but the last one, I couldn't remember where we're going with our strategic plan. And I was hoping that, honestly, I'm hoping for a redo, because I felt like it was just very scrambly. And do we have, Roger, where is that?
So we distributed the report from the consultant who, or facilitator, I should say, who conducted the last session to town council. We were trying to set up a special meeting to go over that in May. Unfortunately, we couldn't find a date that was convenient for everybody. So the next discussion was to carry it forward to the M&P in June, if my memory serves me correctly.
Okay, so on June 6th, we'll be discussing the report that you sent out, and then deciding whether or not we're going to.
Well, A, if there's any comments on it, B, adjustments to prioritization perhaps, and C, setting forth specific things that we want to accomplish within specific timeframes to the best we could estimate the amount of effort that it would take to complete those particular items.
Okay. I don't have.
Can I make a comment about that?
Yeah, please.
I'm still a little fuzzy about that.
Yeah, I'm fuzzy too.
So, to me, what she sent out, as I read it, as I recall reading it, it reflected what we did. But to me, it wasn't a good place to go forward. And I think what we need to do is get back into like doing a SWAT thing or something, and focusing on our mission, and find items that we think are strategically important to go forward, and just come up with it and go.
We need her back out here.
I think she does a really good job.
She does.
We just got off track with thinking out, in my opinion, too far in advance, rather than things that we could work on over the few years.
Is it possible to bring her back before we leave?
I was hoping she was going to come on June 6th.
Oh,
We hadn't reached out to her because we didn't understand that you all wanted her to come back, but we will reach out to her and see what her availability is.
is there anything, what else is on the June 6th work session, Michelle? Because this would be something she would, I mean, if she came on the 6th, that would be fantastic, but we would have like an afternoon session with just her.
Well, I would really suggest that, if we could just pick up a backup date in case June 6th is not available for her, that you all are interested in doing this. Is the day before, for example, a date that you might be interested, or whatever, just in case she has a conflict that date or has plans or something.
Joanne, do you have conflicts for that first whole week of June, or even the second week of June?
Well, I fly out Friday.
You fly out Friday, okay.
The 7th. And that whole week, my granddaughter's here with her kids. We're going to do Monday and Thursday. So we fit in Tuesday, Wednesday. I won't have any time with my granddaughter and her friends, but
And when do you come
whatever.
back?
I come back July 8th.
Okay, so,
Because we said we weren't going to have any more meetings.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I scheduled for
I-
after our
understandable.
meetings. But I'm just wondering, we talk about looking at what we have and prioritizing. I'd love to hear, why doesn't everybody also bring, if you're going to prioritize what's already on the list, we know what those are. And if you have some other things, why don't we see what we can accomplish June 6th? Bring ideas then too. Have them typed out, or
Yeah.
even present them ahead of time and have them where we can all ponder them for a few days before June 6th.
okay, so you're only available on the 6th. Roxanne, are you Well, it's something that everybody should participate in, so that leaves it to the 6th. Well, let's hope that she's available.
Madam
See if-
Mayor, just so you know, I'm leaving soon as our midday that day, so.
We're leaving
so,
midday on the 6th.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And what about next week?
We are not leaving together, by the way, just so you know.
Glad you clarified.
Good to know that. Good to know that.
Could
Roxanne?
we move our meeting on the 6th to 8 a.m. in the morning? So we have a little more time to accomplish
Sure.
things?
I don't have any problem with that, do you?
No,
Just an idea.
Yeah,
Michelle,
works
I
for
heard,
me.
did I hear a sigh from Michelle?
because Ray just said something that BORCAB is at 1 o'clock that day, is that right?
Thank you, Michelle.
Good idea, that works for me.
Okay, we'll move it to 8 a.m. And, all right. So I don't have anything else, but I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
It is, anyone object? It's 10:43 a.m. and we stand adjourned.
I'll put this up in case anybody wants to
we
look
were
at it.
done with the agenda before 10.
Yeah.